There are a lot, tons of movies based on the Bible. Movies based on the Bible have been around since, well, movies have been around. The first being Viet Passion du Christ, which in English translates to The Life and Passion of Christ. It's a 1903 French film, and at 44 minutes long, it is considered to be the first feature-length narrative of any kind. It's quite fitting, really. The first book ever printed on Johannes Gutenberg's movable type printing press was, of course, the Bible, and then the first feature-length film was a depiction of the Bible. Over the last 120 years, there have been many more Bible movies. Some are great classics, and others so terrible that you wish the plagues of Revelation would be upon them. But for the time being, I'm going to limit it to the top 3 best and worst Bible films ever. Before we start, films like Ben-Hur, The Robe, and Quo Vadis will have to be disqualified. Even though some of them take place during biblical times, some of them even depict biblical events, the overarching storylines and characters are what we would call extra-biblical or straight-up fictitious. But you should give these films a watch because they are entertaining. Another qualifier will have to be budget. These days, the cost of camera equipment has gotten so affordable that really anybody can get one, make a Bible movie, put together a nice poster, and then have it ready for a streaming service. Just go on Amazon and type in Bible movies. There will be dozens, if not hundreds of examples, most of them not worth the time it takes to click. Not saying that there couldn't be a hidden gem in there. Just for the purposes of this video, we're trying to limit it to things that were either developed by a studio, something that had a theatrical release, or, like a history of people watching them. Let's start with my number 3 best Bible movie, which will be Jonah, a VeggieTales movie. You may think I'm trolling, but hear me out. If you were a 90s kid that grew up in church, you will remember VeggieTales, the anthropomorphic vegetables that taught us lessons from the Bible. After direct VHS releases like Josh and the Big Wall, Dave and the Giant Pickle, and Rack, Shack and Benny, they had an army of children all over the world that were waiting to see their first big screen release. And that came in the form of Jonah, a full-length silver screen feature with bigger scope, bigger animation, and bigger music. What resulted was basically the ultimate VeggieTales experience. The film grossed over $25 million, which is quite impressive for 2002 considering the Christian film revolution hadn't even started yet. Other than the fact that the cast is, well, vegetables. With the exception of a caterpillar, a camel, and of course the whale, it stays surprisingly true to the biblical account, albeit with a healthy dose of imagination. They make you feel connected to Jonah's struggle of not wanting to follow God's commands and preach mercy to Israel's enemies. The song at this point in the film is actually really good. In the Bible, Jonah is the main character of the book, but not really the hero of the story. And that comes across nicely in the film. Jonah is proud, ungrateful, he thinks he knows better than God, and he lacks empathy for almost every character in the movie. Even though it's a kids' movie, they don't change the story so that everything ends up bright and colorful. It ends like the story of Jonah ends, with him alone, miserable, suicidal. Heavy stuff. Then they actually exposit the meaning of the story to the viewer like you would in a church service, except it's not preachy or forced, which is not easy to do in a movie. And of course, it's entertaining. It works as a film. That's why I'm giving it the number 3 spot. Now to swap over to the not-so-good Bible movies, I'm going to be picking for my number 3 spot, Exodus, Gods and Kings. This movie had no right to be this bad. Made on a budget of $140 million and directed by Ridley Scott. Yeah, Gladiator, Blade Runner, Alien, that Ridley Scott. Side note, my favorite film of his is actually Kingdom of Heaven, which is severely underrated. The film stars Christian Bale, Ben Kingsley, Joel Edgerton, Sigourney Weaver, and holy Moses, is that Jesse Pinkman? With a cast and director this good, it should have been really good. What it was really boring. So much so that I went and watched it again, and I felt like I was forgetting it as I was watching it. It looks very gray. It's like perpetually overcast. It's also really odd. There's a lot of shots and entire sequences that prioritize aesthetic over logic. It's like Scott couldn't decide if he was making an epic or if he was making an indie art film, so he made neither. And it's inaccurate. Not just to the biblical narrative, like no pillar of fire at the Red Sea, but also to secular history. The film depicts the Battle of Kadesh, and it's apparently nothing like the actual event. But the inaccuracies could be forgiven if they made the story more engaging. But they don't. They just make everything more frustrating. God is depicted as a whiny child who doesn't give clear instructions and then complains when Moses tries his best to do what he said. In the book of Exodus, God is really clear about what he wants Moses to do and how he wants him to do it. He also comes across as powerful beyond comprehension, not British Caillou. While the visual effects are good, I guess, they're presented without any real conviction. It's as if Ridley Scott knows that this story is supposed to be epic, so he just puts all the pieces together, shakes them up, and expects you to be swept away. But alas, at the end of the film, I was still standing on dry ground. Dry, boring, gray ground. For my number 2 best Bible film, I'm choosing One Night with the King. You might not have heard of this one, but it's worth checking out. It's the story of Esther, the Jewish girl who became queen of Persia, and the attempted annihilation of the Jewish people by Haman. It was made on a budget of $20 million. That is less than 15% of the budget of Exodus. And they do quite well with it. There were some CGI cityscapes, but they do a serviceable job. I never found them distracting. And while their location in India where they filmed this wasn't really period correct, it really helps the look of the film to have actual buildings constructed into the rock. The acting is pretty good, with standouts of course being John Rhys-Davies, Omar Sharif, and John Noble. Luke Goss and Tiffany DuPont do a serviceable job as well. The only bad casting choice has got to be Haman, played by John Callis of Battlestar Galactica fame. I don't know if he's reading the script or eating it, but he be chewing the scenery hard. He should just look at the camera and say, "I'm evil." But the film does a good job of mining the background material in the scripture to fully flesh out the story. Figures like Haggai and Hatuk, which you kind of just read their names in the Bible and keep going, well, they're given full storylines that prop up the central storyline of Esther. Also, the observations on Persian politics, their war with the Greeks, and even the ancient feud between the Israelites and the Agagites all serve to give body to the narrative and make the viewer feel more immersed in the time. It's actually a technique that would be employed by shows like The Chosen many years later. Does the film have some problems? Sure. But in their pursuit of accuracy and scope, I think they succeed more times than not. Many of the sets and scenarios truly do feel like something that could have taken place during ancient Persian decadence, like Xerxes filling the floor with flower petals, or playing a giant board game with human pieces. Speaking of pieces, there's a really beautiful musical piece during the coronation scene. While portraying the story with more accuracy than most, they also take time to build out the world of the film, and with limited resources. So give it a try. You might like it. Now let's go back to the garbage bin for Darren Aronofsky's Noah, starring Russell Crowe, Jennifer Connelly, and many more competent actors who have better things to do than this ridiculous movie. I'm putting this above Exodus because even though it shares the same drab look and a fair amount of boredom, it makes up for it by being just plain weird. Aronofsky apparently sees the story as mythical in origin, and he leans into that with a lot of fantasy elements throughout the film, whether it be dogs that have scales. Yes, that is a thing in this movie. Methuselah fighting off an entire army with a flaming sword, or the infamous rock monsters.
It was a rock monster!
And if you thought whiny kid God in Exodus was frustrating, at least he gave some instructions. The God in Noah isn't seen or heard. He just kind of gives Noah these weird, vague acid trips. Again, in the book of Genesis, God is really clear with Noah. Why he's destroying the earth. Why build the ark. How big to build the ark. How many of each kind of animal to put on the ark. So why in both of these movies is God portrayed as some mystical force that gives weird, vague impressions of what you may need to do, sort of, just enough to be utterly unhelpful? It's almost like both interpretations came from atheistic directors who don't like the idea of God to begin with. But it's this vague interpretation of God that makes the story of Noah so tedious. God isn't clear about what he wants done, so it's up to Russell Crowe to figure it out. He's kind of an environmentalist who doesn't believe in killing animals. In fact, he seems to think God wants them to put all the animals on the ark so that they can be saved because they're innocent apparently, and humans are supposed to die out after the flood. He believes this so strongly, in fact, that the climax of the story is him deciding whether or not to murder his newborn twin granddaughters. It's so contrived that the entire business could be avoided if God would have just, told them why they built the boat. Honestly, the movie is full of things that are not just frustrating, but dumb. For example, fallen angels turning into rock monsters. Frustrating. Those same rock monsters being overwhelmed by tiny humans. Dumb. Thinking the purpose of the ark is just to save the animals. Frustrating. All the animals falling asleep in a massive dog pile. Dumb. This goat being thrown 30 feet in the air for some reason. I'm kidding, that's hilarious. If I could describe the film Noah in just 2 words, they would be these: frustrating and dumb. And for my number 1 best Bible movie, it is The Prince of Egypt. Seriously, it's not just the best Bible movie, in my opinion, it's one of the best movies. Period. The film is a masterpiece. The cast is sensational. The score by Hans Zimmer is one of the best ever created. The story is captivating. The animation is breathtaking. It seamlessly balances epic weight and scale with humanity and intimacy. The relationship between Moses and Ramses is especially gripping. And even the lighter moments played for laughs get laughs.
You're in trouble, young man.
Get down here. I think you owe us an apology.
Oh, my new thing.
It's a film that I have seen dozens of times and will continue to see for the rest of my life. One of the better aspects is how the shots are composed in such a way that they're not just cinematic and beautiful. They actually tell the story in secret, hidden, and subtle ways. It's a true work of art. Since it's been a recurring theme in this video, let's see how the Prince of Egypt handled the portrayal of God.
Take the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you stand is holy ground.
Who are you?
I am that I am.
It's great. It's full of mystery and wonder and fear and warmth. In effect, it's the impression you get when you read the book of Exodus. And while the film does take certain liberties with the story, by and large, it's not glaring enough to matter. And it really just moves the plot along a little quicker, which is common in book-to-film adaptations. Is it as amazing or accurate as the actual story in the book of Exodus? No, of course not. But it doesn't feel like they're ever trying to be intentionally disrespectful to that story. It's an incredible film. And if you haven't seen it, you need to. And before we bring you to the summit of the dunghill that is terrible Bible films, here's a few honorable mentions for the good list. The 10 Commandments. Now, I know a lot of you would have put this in your top 3. For me, I don't hate it, but I'm not a big Charlton Heston fan.
It's as if he knows how important his character is to history, so all of his lines will be delivered with gravitas.
In fact, most of the actors talk like they're in front of an audience, with the exception of Edward G. Robinson and Cedric Hardwicke, who are just terrific. But the size and scale of production, it never fails to impress, and it's full of old Hollywood nostalgia, so it does bear mentioning on this list. Then we have The Passion of the Christ, the box office hit that energized the Christian film revolution. And again, there's some things I like and some things I don't like. I really like the attention to detail and the locations, the art design, the costuming, the language work. It's really impressive that Mel Gibson got all the actors to speak in Aramaic and Latin. But it does feel odd to have an entire movie just about the crucifixion. I realize that most people are familiar with the story of Jesus, but from a movie perspective, it feels like it would have been better to have at least a little bit of build-up. But if you intend to watch all the most popular Bible-based movies, you kind of have to watch this one. And for the number 1 worst, David and Goliath. This is without a doubt the best Bible movie I have ever seen. I remember reading articles about this film when it was in pre-production years ago. It was being touted as a $50 million ultra-accurate adaptation of the story of David and Goliath. Now remember, One Night with the King had a budget of $20 million and they did pretty good, so this should be like awesome, right?
You coward! You little maggot!
I want to fight that monster and show him the hand of our almighty God.
The blood of a cow makes me powerful.
There is a film called The Room. You may have heard of it. It's kind of a cult classic because, in an attempt to make a good film, they made a terrible film by accident, and they really wanted it to be good. This results in what's known as so bad, it's good. I believe we have one of those here. David and Goliath is terrible on every level. The acting, the cinematography, the script, the music, the sound design, the costuming. It is aggressively bad. It's like it's trying its hardest to be bad. But at the same time, you can tell that the makers of the film are trying to make a film that's somewhat good. And that's why it's so funny. With the exception of the times they forgot to, nearly every line of dialogue from Goliath is overdubbed like an old kung fu film, and the voice they chose for him is...
I am God! You are nothing! You coward! You little maggot! Nobody can defeat me! You little weasel! Nobody can defeat me!
And then he repeats these lines over and over and over again throughout the film. One time he even says he's going to sue David.
You moron! I'll sue you!
The production was apparently so lazy they didn't even pick up the trash that's in the shot before the camera started rolling. Anyone want to grab that? Or, crop in a little bit? It's so amateurish that the camera keeps panning over to see what should clearly be out of frame.
No! 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 No!
Seriously, God bless that guy. The visual effects are so bad that a soldier actually glitches onto the screen in the middle of the final battle. And the duplicated armies, they're not even tracked into the shot properly, so they just kind of float around like lily pads. One of my favorite moments was when two characters are having a conversation in the middle of the road, and there's guys on horseback and on foot walking in front of and behind them. After a while, I'm like, man, this shot is really crowded. It's kind of hard to see the main characters. I even wondered if the foreground was like green screen elements of men on horseback and foot. But then the camera angle changes and you can see it's just like 15 guys walking and riding in a circle. Around and around and around. Now, this is a legit way of pulling off this kind of shot, but why would you have it go on so long that we start to notice the repeat people? And why would you change the angle so we could see everybody walking in a circle? They also just straight up rip off music from much better films. Like, this music is from The Patriot. Thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. Just plain stealing. This film is so absolutely awful that I recommend you watch it at your earliest convenience. I want you to watch it so bad, I have put the link to it in the description of this video. And it's not pirating. The director of the movie, Tim Che, actually uploaded it to his YouTube channel. So go watch it. Now, if you think this is harsh, and maybe I'm being too critical to fellow Christians that are just trying to do their best, may I recommend that you go over to YouTube Kids? There's some lovely videos from Miss Rachel and Coco Melon you'd probably really enjoy. Look, I didn't cut Hollywood any slack when they made bad Bible movies, and I'm not about to do it for Christians either, alright? Just because you make a movie about the Bible, or even a Christian movie in general, that doesn't automatically make your movie good. The message will always be good, even if your film is trash. Jesus can save your soul, not your film. Also, if you say that your film is a big-budget, biblically accurate movie with top-of-the-line visual effects, and then what we all watch is this,
Why do you think you're in any kind of position to make deals with me? Huh?
that means you lied, and you get what's coming to you. I want to shout out Indie Christian Review for turning me on to this, because as bad as it was, I enjoyed every minute. In composing this list, I realized there is a real lack of good Bible movies out there. Of course, there's TV shows and miniseries, but by and large, filmmakers are not tackling biblical productions. And when they do, it's just the same stories they've done like 15 times before. There is so much history in the Bible that is yet to be put to film. I really hope some talented directors and motivated studios step up to the plate and deliver some true biblical epics. But if you don't at least respect the source material, it's nearly impossible to make a good adaptation. Just look at Rings of Power. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you agree or disagree with the list, maybe you think there should be something on there that we didn't mention, be sure to comment that down below and subscribe and click the bell for all things Bible. Remember, God wrote a book. He didn't make a movie. So, live by the former and enjoy the latter.